very much for that intro. Yeah, so I'm just directing my daughter over here. I had a very interesting discussion with my boyfriend recently, and we were debating appropriate behaviors and conversation topics for a dinner party we were hosting. Because this wasn't just any dinner party. We were expecting some very special guests, and those guests were my husband and my husband's girlfriend. Yeah, so it's not the kind of scenario that you see that there are very clear protocols to follow. It's not the kind of thing you see in romantic comedies or TV sitcoms very often. You know, it's like the man who I married, who I have a daughter with, was introducing me to a woman that he had been seeing for over a year and a half at that point. So this is my first time meeting her. And I was introducing them to this guy that I was falling in love with. And this is actually something that each one of us was looking forward to. But these are the kinds of situations I sometimes find myself in because I am in an open marriage. More specifically, I'm in a polyamorous relationship. So what that means is that my husband and I, we are open to engaging in multiple loving relationships without limitations. And those relationships can involve some level of physical intimacy, but they tend to go much deeper than that. What we are open to really is connecting with other people, with other lovers on an intellectual level and on an emotional level. And we're open to falling in love with other people. So that dinner was the first time that the four of us had spent time together as a group. And we hadn't established any specific rules ahead of time for what was and what wasn't allowed. Were we allowed to hold hands? Should we avoid touching completely? What ended up happening was that I was at my boyfriend's place. I cooked this delicious Peruvian meal. And at some point, my husband arrived and his partner arrived. We ate dinner. We had lovely conversations. And then we finished the evening enjoying the view from the balcony and then watching silly music videos on the internet. So there was nothing salacious or, dirty about it. It was actually very wholesome. And yes, there was some cuddling involved, but it wasn't like it wasn't an orgy, let's put it that way. So I identify as polyamorous by orientation, but my husband and I started our journey into polyamory a couple of years ago when a friend of mine came to visit from Melbourne. He ended up staying with us for a week. My husband happened to be very busy with some work-related stuff at the time, so I was spending a lot of one-on-one time with this friend. And we developed this bond that became so strong that it started to make me nervous. But then that bond that we were developing became really exciting. I was excited about the feeling of having butterflies in my stomach again after so many years. And then I was excited to tell my husband about it. I was nervous, but I was excited because I felt like he was going to be happy for me. And this bond felt like it wasn't a threat to our relationship at all. I'm a life coach, and the thing that's at the core of my practice is the understanding that sometimes some of the things that hold people back in life are this tendency to adhere to these societal expectations that are pretty arbitrary when you think about it. And I get a lot of questions from people when they find out that I'm polyamorous, which is great. People are curious. I love answering questions. I'm very open about it. But sometimes I get judgments and criticism. And that's fine too. I've always been an outsider. I've always been an out of the box thinker. I don't really concern myself with fitting in or other people's judgments. I've been accused of not being committed to my marriage, but the truth is that when my husband and I got married, it was because we wanted to build a life together. It wasn't because we wanted to take ownership of each other. And we also understand that toxic jealousy is not equivalent to love. I've been accused of being promiscuous. The truth is that one of my partners lives on the other side of the world, and we still haven't met in person. And it's funny because he and my partner in Brisbane met for the first time during one of these HerStory summits. And some of you were there for that. And it was adorable. But the relationship I have with my partner overseas is about that intellectual connection that we have. And the boyfriend that I mentioned in the beginning of the story, he's got this radiance and this zest for life that just makes me feel like I've gained an extra 10 years of life. So it's a very different, with each of my partners, I get a very different feeling, and I get to indulge different aspects of my personality and my interests. I know that I'm a very complex person, and that's something that I take full ownership of. So the idea of asking one person to be my everything, that's something I just can't even wrap my head around that, to be honest. And my husband and I both are very complex, multifaceted people. We do make each other very happy, but we also understand that our potential happiness as individuals is limitless. And when we allow space for each other to experience limitless happiness in every possible form, that makes our relationship stronger. Love is a gift. It's not a currency. It's not about ownership. Love is the kind of thing that can spill over onto a lot of different people in your life. I liken it sometimes to people who have more than one child. Having the second child does not diminish their capacity to love the first one. And the more children they have, the more that love grows. So it's a similar principle, but instead of applying it to having multiple children, because we only have the one, we're one and done, it's the people who bring that something extra into our lives. It's like the reason we have more than one friend. No single friend is going to be your everything. That's why we have multiple friends. And the idea of like forced monogamy as opposed to monogamy that's chosen by two people in a relationship can be very toxic. In some ways, you can argue that it's a way for society, for governments, for businesses and marketers to package this idea of relationships, of coupledom, of families, and it makes it a lot easier to sell shit to us. You know what I mean? I believe that no one has the right to tell people how many people they can love, who they can love, or what they can do with the love that they have. And there are a lot of things that people can learn from non-monogamous relationships in terms of their own personal development. So people who have chosen monogamy, or people who are single, really examining issues around things like jealousy and dealing with insecurities and the things that envy can teach us about what we really want for ourselves is something that needs to be explored, that a lot of people don't necessarily explore until they're put in a situation where they have to face it over and over and over again. If I have moments where I feel, a little bit jealous over someone my partner might have just started seeing, I look at the situation, I say, okay, what is it about this person that's making me feel insecure? And it's always going to be something that I want to address in myself. So that means, okay, well, that's an aspect of my life that I need to develop, that I need to examine and decide what I want to do about it. Because the truth is, like, my husband, he's never going to find another Leslie. It's just not going to happen. And it's also lovely being able to sit in the security of understanding that if he, if and when he meets someone that he has like a really powerful connection with, I'm not going to lose him over that. I can celebrate that with him because he doesn't have to choose between me and some other person. And the more we all get to know each other, the more simplified our communications become. And logistically, for everyone to have at least some acquaintanceship with each other really facilitates a growth of a community around the people that we are involved with. It's just that extra web of support that sometimes I feel like people in monogamous relationships who haven't necessarily chosen monogamy, it's something that they tend to miss out on. So I always urge people to think about what they define as love, where they're looking for love, how much of that love they're giving to themselves, how much of that they're depending on one other person for, how they supplement their need or their want for love through their interactions with other people, whether those are romantic interactions or platonic interactions, familial interactions. These are things that really need to be examined. And having to look deep within yourself, deep within your relationships, can really show you how you present to the outside world or how you allow other people to see you. Love is a gift. It's not a currency. It's not something that is owned by anyone. And that's what my workshop is going to be about. I still haven't selected an actual date for it. I think it'll be the 15th. But I'm going to talk about the things that people can learn about themselves, about relationships, by looking at how non-monogamous relationships function. Ethically non-monogamous relationships. I need to specify that because everyone needs to communicate. Everyone needs to be very aware of who's doing what with whom, what each person's boundaries are, what sort of agreements people have. It's not about imposing rules that are going to protect that primary relationship, because that can be very oppressive as well. But it's about really understanding where the need for those rules or those agreements comes from and how you're actually going to manifest those within each relationship dynamic. Thank you.